Hey guys, what's going on? So I already did a video on this knife, which is the Benchmade Anthem. What is it? 781 Anthem 781. Yep. And I don't like the old format, so I'm gonna do it again. And I figured it's been, a year or whatever, and since I uploaded the video, and maybe some things have changed. And after thinking about it, I realized that things definitely have changed. So, what we're looking at here is a Benchmade Anthem 20 CV blade, full titanium clip, titanium handle, an integral, meaning it is one piece of titanium, which pretty cool stuff. Makes for a simple knife. Versus having two slabs, the spacer, screw, all that. You only have a pivot on this and the axis lock. So getting into it, let's start with the blade. The blade is really well done. I think I may have mentioned this in the first video. It's hard to not do well on the blade when it looks like the best blade of all time. This is one of the best, people say. So if you look at the blade shape and you really are kind of honest about it, these look pretty similar. This one's a little wider and a little bit longer overall, but it looks like it might be loosely based off the Sebenza blade. Yeah, it is what it is. It doesn't bother me. It's a blade shape. In fact, I'm actually pretty happy that they used it because I love it. I think it's really well done. 20 CV, it did pretty decent. 20 CV, M390, and 204P, of course, are all analogs of each other, meaning they're basically the same steel, done by different companies. This knife, in my testing, did decent. It's not performing like some M390 does and some 20 CV does. Like the 20 CV in the Strider SNG is next level compared to this. They really don't even seem like the same steel. And yeah, this one is 20 CV. So there you go. So no jimping on the blade. I love it. Don't need any. You have this nice deep little whatever here. Flat ground blade. It is pretty thinly ground. Thinner than a military. Which is the same as a PM2. I know a lot of guys own those. This is a military, obviously. And it is thinner than this knife. So good to go. Flat ground, if I didn't already mention it. Nice crowning on the spine, so it's basically doesn't have sharp edges on the spine. Let's see, what else? Sharpening choil. It's part of the axis lock. It's the way the knife works, but I'm glad it's there. Definitely helps out. Nice stonewash on here. Definitely hides scratches. Some stonewashes recently I've been getting in hand really don't do a great job, but this one's a little bit heavier of a stonewash. So you can still see the grind through here, through the stonewash, but for the most part, really good stonewash. Thumb stud, perfect. Can't complain. I think it's an interesting thumb stud too. I really like the way it looks. It's got like a gear pattern, and it matches the axis lock, which I think is pretty cool. So I guess we'll move on to the handle. Like I said, this is a full titanium handle, integral, so milled straight down the middle. No body screws, nothing, just a pivot, the axis lock. You can see the axis lock is attached by these 2 screws in the top. The axis lock in this knife is a little bit different. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but rather than using the Omega springs, this knife uses a coil spring, which a coil spring is a much better spring to use than the Omega springs. They're just more durable. I don't think anybody can argue that. Coil springs are fantastically durable. I mean, they distribute the force evenly, assuming that they're made right, throughout the entire spring, versus the Omega spring having a weak point. What else? Nice chevron texturing on this handle. I really like the way it looks. I mean, I was going to get to the clip, but I'm going to save that for a second. Super thin handle. Very well done. This knife, despite weighing about what my CF Sabinza weighs, I cannot... So, the Sabinza is a lot thicker in the pocket. Maybe not by that much. Yeah, it's basically a Sabinza with the front scale removed. So it is pretty thin. This knife is super light, but weight isn't really what I feel in the pocket. It's how thick the knife is. So definitely, you know, quite a big difference there. This knife just kind of disappears in your pocket. I know that sounds corny and cheesy, but just because everyone says it, but it's true. Ergos are really good. No jimping. You don't fucking need any. I'm not going to war with this. I know some people do go to war, and they should get probably not this knife. But I mean, really all the grip that this knife has comes from this chevron texturing right here, and these little grooves and holes that were drilled or sculpted into the back of the handle. Moving on to the clip. Clip kind of sucks. It's ugly. It's really kind of mind-numbing how a knife can match, or how the clip matches and yet does not match the knife. It resembles the pattern that's on the knife, but it's way smaller, and it actually looks quite strange in person, in my opinion. I don't mind the way the clip works. In fact, I like clips like this. I prefer a spring clip 90% of the time, but if this is what I have, I'm good with it. It's not a bad clip. It does carry deep. That's a really, really nice thing. So with some knives, you know, the Strider, you got... So if this were in my, like, say, you know, like jeans, they have that kind of flat part in the pocket, depending on what kind you wear. This is probably how much would stick out with the Strider, and then that much would stick out with, like, above my finger would stick out with the Anthem. Action, super smooth. I'm not a huge action guy, like, I really don't care. But it is drop shutty for all you guys that are into that. It's on ball bearings. I believe they are stainless steel bearings. Be careful with the pivot. Don't want to tighten that shit down too much and then make little, you know, divots in the titanium. You'll get a bumpy action. This one, I did over tighten, but as of right now, I can't feel that bumpy grittiness that I was able to feel at one point. But I just checked the knife side to side. So real quick, I'm going to fuck around with the pivot, and we will see. We will see. Let's see. So yeah, pivot was loose. The knife dropped shut still, but zero side to side. Lockup on this is fantastic. It's super rigid, which is definitely a huge plus. It's, even though it is a gentleman's folder kind of, definitely like a dressed up Benchmade. It is one of the most solid access locks I have ever felt in my life. It is, you know, at least this one is. I didn't really crank on the ones at the store, but this thing is, I mean, tight. The only downside is I did accidentally tighten down this pivot too much, and I made dents in the titanium. So this one has like a bumpy action that it's very subtle, and you won't be able to pick up on it unless you're handling the knife. But if you grab the knife by the tip and just go like this, you can feel it. So kind of sucks, but I mean, that is a user error. Just to warn you guys, don't do that. What else? Super deep choil up front. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, so pretty much we've covered the entire knife. Let's see. Yeah, so let's talk about the price. This knife is $425. At one point, I was blown away by this knife for that amount of money. This knife is incredible. It's well built. It's stunning. It's an eye catcher. People love it. It's super photogenic too. So you could, I mean, it looks good on camera. This chevron pattern does such a great job with lights. I mean, it's fantastic, and you can use and abuse the knife. It doesn't show on the blade. I've had this for over a year, well over a year, and you can't even tell I carried it. It's really well done. I mean, if you look at one new, you can see that the like peaks of the pattern in the titanium have lightened a little bit, and people ask on my Instagram, like, hey, what did you do to, you know, treat the titanium to make it look like that? Just carry it. You know, the knife will look good with wear. You're seeing it right here. It looks fantastic. I mean, it's a great knife. But then $425, right? What knives are $425? Strider, Hinderer, or Jesus. What is this? CRK? I think this is $450, $425 for the standard version. Let's make some room. No, I'll keep that central. So we have these two. Umnumzan, Sabenza. I mean, what else? The Hinderer XM18 3.5, I think is $425, depending on the version. A Gen 6, brand new, I think is $40 more than the Anthem. That's for a Hinderer. So these knives are incredibly well built. I think, and I have to be careful with how I word this, I think the Anthem is a good transition if you're going from stuff like the military or the PM2 and Spyderco and whatnot, or, you know, the Benchmade, you know, higher end Benchmades, the Super Freak and M4. I think this is a good transition knife to get you into these. I don't think Benchmade is capable of producing a knife and I mean, prove me wrong. With the same tolerances as Chris Reeve or Hinderer. These knives are built incredibly well. Insanely well. And I don't know if Benchmade has it. I don't think they have it in them. I mean, I'd love for them to drop a knife and for me to have to make a video and eat my words, you know? But I don't think they have the technology to make knives fit as well as, you know, CRK and Hinderer. Strider, they're a little bit different from, you know, these two. They're built very well, but they're built more like a production knife than the other two. The thing Strider does best is heat treat. So this knife doesn't even perform like this knife, and they're the same steel. It's questionable. It's still, I mean, these new Striders are built to an extremely high level of quality. So, I mean, it's more understandable. I don't think that these knives are worth the hype. Like, I definitely wouldn't pay $600 to $800 for one of these, which I've been offered as high as $850. At this time of the video, it's Striders are in short supply, so if you're watching this years later and you're, you know, just getting into knives, these probably won't be that much, but still, it really puts this knife into context, and if you have this knife and you get a Chris Reeve and then you go back to carrying this knife, you're gonna feel like you're carrying a lesser knife, or at least I do, to be honest. It sucks to say that, but I mean, just the finish on it, finish is good, but there's certain aspects to it that, you know, you can see the machine grind through the stone wash. You can see the machining marks on the titanium. Let's see. Yeah, you can see in there. I mean, there's just a lot of little things that you wouldn't necessarily notice until you pick up one of these and you realize, whoa, whole different ball game. And these knives aren't perfect either, but it's just something that needs to be looked at. So for the money, I still think it's worth it, because this knife is doing something that these other companies aren't. It's bringing you a beautifully machined titanium handle that's an integral. That's how this knife gets away with the price. It's super well done, and it's worth $425 to me. But in terms of my taste, so what I mean by it's worth $425 to me is if you objectively look at the knife and you wrote all that stuff down that describes this knife that I just talked about earlier in the video, and you told me the price, I would say yes. Perfect. That's perfect. But then, you know, you get it in hand, it's incredible. But still, something about these knives feels like they're bringing a little bit more to the table. They have exceptional warranties, and Benchmade has really good warranties as well. Like a blade replacement is $30. For a Hinderer, Sabinza, and Strider, you're looking at well over $100 for a blade replacement. Not not as easy to, you know, shell out $100 for a new blade as it is 30. But you have to look at what you're getting. So what Chris Reeve offers is something that can't be necessarily written down or understood through text or pictures. They're machining these knives to an extremely high level of fit. Extremely precision. Ground, extremely well fit, just to a different level. Now, this knife is still really good. It's better than any Spyderco fit and finish I've ever experienced. But just once you get to this next level, it kind of brings the whole thing into context. In-house screws, like with Hinderer, the whole knife is made in-house from Rick. The screws on this guy are outsourced from God knows where. So it is just kind of it's all preference, and that's the nice thing about this community is there are new knives coming out whether we want them or not. And if somebody prefers that to something else, then they'll buy it. I mean, that's so cool. There's not many other industries where people are making things, first off, that nobody really arguably needs. And just, I don't know, like the envelope gets pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's incredible. But yeah, I mean, I just think that for the money, if it were me, if you're somebody who has to justify and check things off a list, like it has to be this, then this is the knife for you. But if you're more into, the experience of a knife, I like brands. I hate to fucking say it because I know a lot of times it doesn't make a difference, but I like reputable brands. Maybe it's an American thing, maybe it isn't, maybe it's a me thing, just being dumb, but brands matter. It's almost like building credit with your clients, having a brand. That is your line of credit to the consumer. And these names, Strider, Hinderer, Chris Reeve, they just carry a little bit different of a weight to it. Now, most people, especially in the gun industry, look at Benchmade as top of the line. From what a lot of people say, it doesn't get any better than Benchmade. But all I'm trying to say here, sorry about that little rant, is this knife is great. Full titanium integral handle, 20 CV blade, axis lock. You can't get this knife anywhere else but from Benchmade. If this is the knife you want, get it. It's worth it, I promise. Now, for me personally, objectively, I don't love the axis lock. I don't love the compression lock. I like liner locks. I prefer a liner lock to a frame lock. So, liner lock right here. Frame lock right here. I prefer this. Unpopular opinion, but that's just how it is. So, axis locks don't really do it for me. They are great locks. If you're left-handed, this is also going to be a great knife for you. I can't stress it enough. This knife is insanely well built, and it's great. It's just, with all these other options to consider, you really have to do your homework and be honest and just thorough with how you make your decision. So, with that being said, I feel like I've ranted a lot, and I don't know. I don't know if what I've said made any sense at all, but I just wanted to make this video again, kind of just to clear some things up. But for sure, this knife is never going to leave my collection. I love it. You know, it's a good worker, and it really does deliver quite a good bit of performance. And it's just pretty. It's a pretty knife. Very ergonomic. No jimping anywhere, which I love. On paper, this is kind of my ideal knife. Maybe it's because I've had it for longer than other knives, but it doesn't get carried a ton, but it does get carried still. What else can I say? Yeah, I think that just about sums it up. Yeah, I mean, it is super EDC friendly. Just one last thing. Definitely get one in hand. If you're not a Benchmade guy, this probably isn't the knife for you. But I happen to be a Benchmade guy. I'm a Spyderco guy. I'm just a knife guy. And, you know, I want to give everybody a shot. I'm such a nice guy. I want everybody to have a shot. So, you know. And I got this knife, like I said many times in the video, a year ago. I still have it. That should be testimony enough. It's the oldest knife in my collection at the moment. So, this is the only knife that I still have from a year ago, which is hard to believe. But I don't see myself ever getting rid of this. So, you know, if you're a Benchmade collector and you're just looking to hit the pinnacle, you know, Benchmade, get it. If you want objectively one of the best EDC knives Benchmade has to offer, and really one of the only knives that Spyderco or Benchmade puts out that can even be considered in a discussion with Chris Reeve, Strider, Hinderer, Microtech, you know. It really is pretty impressive that they can even be discussed at the same time, you know. But definitely check one out. If you have one at a local shop, definitely handle it. These are the smoothest, most fun Benchmates to fuck around with I've ever had. And I've had a fair share of Benchmates. So, yeah, check one out or don't. Doesn't matter. Just wanted to do a conclusive video on this guy. And I hope you all are having a good night. I will see you in the next video.